All good?
All good.
All right. Welcome everyone to the Grow You Online series, at least tonight, about spiritual emotional intelligence. My name is Eric Pennington, and joining me as my co-pilot tonight is Jeff East. We're both with a company named Spirit of EQ. So glad that you could join us today, and for the next hour, hopefully you'll come away with a bit more understanding and a bit more optimism about your spiritual bent, if not state. And just to kind of start off a bit, I always like to make sure to alert everyone that Jeff and I pride ourselves in creating psychologically safe environments. And for us, that's important from the standpoint of we want everyone to feel comfortable either sharing or not sharing. And that's totally up to you. We feel like learning and growth comes much better and flows much cleaner when you feel like you're in that kind of place. So we endeavor to do that. The other thing is, if you don't feel comfortable talking and you feel more comfortable typing, there is a chat area, as most people know, down at the bottom of your screen. You can type in the chat if you like. With the size of our group tonight, we'll probably be able to go verbal as well. So if at any point as we're going through things, if you have wait, I have a question, don't hesitate to interrupt or to type. Jeff and I will do our best to keep our eyes on the chat button, but also to give you the ability to unmute yourself is fine as well. So I am going to share my screen with you. We have a little slide deck that we want to show you that
Eric,
kind of, yeah.
I'm going to keep most people muted.
Okay.
So if you do need to speak up, go ahead and do that.
All right, perfect.
Unmute
So
yourself.
hopefully all of you guys can see my screen okay. It is a wonderful mix of colors and shapes, my inspiration. And what we'll be looking at tonight is giving you guys a sense of some of the secrets, if you will, of spiritual emotional intelligence. We kind of shorten it with the acronym of SEQ. So key thing with this, and you're going to discover this as we go into the session, sometimes when people hear spiritual, they begin to gravitate really quickly to religion. And for the purposes of tonight and the core of our profile, this isn't about religion. It can be if you want it to serve you that way, but it's not a part of the program at its core, or the profile at its core. We're speaking of primarily the essence of who you are. Your name, your personhood is that connector. So this is one of my favorite slides, and it represents a lot, but before I get too giddy about it, Jeff, would you mind telling everybody kind of what this represents and what it is?
Well, technically it's something called a carry-on, I never say it right. And it's, you find this along hiking trails and things like that, where people will build something to commemorate something that happened. And kind of that's what you can do with the SEQ, is to, build something. But for our purposes tonight, it's going to talk about balance. How well are you balancing and connecting things in your life? And this will make a lot more sense as we go through, but just look at that, and are you lined up like this, where you're sitting there perfectly fine? Anything to add, Eric?
I was thinking, Jeff, if I remember correctly too, these sometimes can be used on hiking trails to help a hiker kind of find their way, right? Which I think is very powerful in this regard. I think all of us, I'm not going to speak directly, obviously, for everyone, but I know for me, and many people have gone through this profile, they've noted about how much more they feel connected and have a sense of direction once they've gone through the profile and the accompanying information. So we thought this slide would be a good one to kind of set in your mind about that idea of balance. And maybe if you like, you can also add to that the bit of the thing that kind of helps you find your way, if you will. So I want to start tonight with some definitions, because this is spiritual emotional intelligence, and we want to kind of level set you a bit so that you have a good sense and idea about what we're talking about. So emotional intelligence, quite simply, from 6 seconds, the definition is the blending of thinking and feeling to make optimal decisions, which will drive more effective actions. I kind of liken it, my take on that definition is I manage my thoughts and my emotions, and then I'm preparing myself to make really good decisions. And that's what everybody wants. This particular slide, the illustration, is the 6 seconds model of emotional intelligence. It contains 3 life pursuits. To your left, as you look at the screen, in blue is the know yourself life pursuit. In the red to your right is the choose yourself life pursuit. And then if you look directly toward the bottom in green is the give yourself. And inside of each of those are competencies. For know yourself, it's enhance emotional literacy, recognize patterns. And then as you move into the choose yourself, it has consequential thinking, navigate emotions, intrinsic motivation, and optimism. And then finally, under the give yourself, you have develop empathy and pursue noble goals. We won't be spending a ton of time on this particular model tonight, primarily because it is just more for illustration purposes. And if you've gone through any of the other 6 seconds assessments or profiles, you may recognize this and understand it. But as we look at the definitional side of it again, there's the emotional intelligence one. Spiritual, this kind of goes into the realm of what we were talking about earlier as far as defining spiritual. Spiritual as in relating to or affecting the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things. And then of course, intelligence, the acquiring of data and using it to solve challenges. So when you put those two together, when this profile was created, and by the way, you may or may not know that the emotional side and the spiritual side are housed on the same side of the brain. So the creators of the profile felt like it would be a very powerful tool to help drive further our understanding about our spiritual and our emotional intelligence. And I firmly, just from my own personal experiences, have seen how this works in multitudes of areas. I almost liken it to, it's kind of that thing, if you could imagine the first thing in the morning, it's kind of finding your center, your core, where you're going to operate from and through that particular day.
Eric?
Yes.
Because I know some of the people have not taken this assessment and they came in after we talked about it. I'm going to go ahead and post the link to the assessment. You know, don't do it now, but when you see it come up, maybe copy and paste it somewhere else, or if you don't have it, send me an email afterwards, and I will make sure you get it so that they understand. They know what we're going to be doing, and that's part of what they signed up for.
That's a great call out. And I would also recommend as well that as we are going through this, sort of open your mind up, not so much that you have to figure it out tonight, because there will be gaps, but tonight you're just going to have this spirit of curiosity and recognizing that there'll be some things that will make total sense to you, and there'll be some things that maybe are a little foreign, but that's okay. it will come, but primarily that spirit of curiosity will serve you well tonight. So what we've done here is basically an illustration of the model that goes into creating the profile. If you will look with me around that triangle, there's a circle with dotted lines. Beginning at the left bottom is awareness, belonging, and insight. And then as you look at the triangle, you can see there balance, service, direction. And I may have got the order of that off from what you'll see in some of the slides, but ultimately, that's kind of the pathway. So I'm going to tackle the first three. The first three are considered to be domains. And the first one is awareness. And awareness relates to you and me, as in how well do I know myself? How familiar am I with my particular surroundings, be it outside, inside? What's my relationship with myself? If you think about it, this one is the place in which a lot of our self-care can really be rooted in, because it puts us in a position, it's kind of that, it's a very much a worn out phrase that you hear on the airplane when they tell you about when the oxygen mask comes down to make sure you first put it on yourself before you help anyone else. That's where awareness is. It's kind of that idea that I'm focusing in on me and understanding myself and growing in self-knowledge and understanding. Very important. But it doesn't stop there, because the next area is the belonging area. And the belonging area would relate to those you are probably closest to. This could be a spouse or significant other, partner. It could be a mother, a brother, a father. It can also be some of your closest friends. Think of the person that when something is really weighing heavy on your mind, who do you call? Who is that person that you know that they'll listen, and they'll listen with intent? So think of family. Go ahead.
They can also be, you know, your close people at work or church or things like that too. It's like Eric said, it's the familiar others, the ones that are close.
Yeah, and you can almost think of it as maybe your network. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever been through this particular training, but there's, at least in the United States, there's a movement toward mental health first aid. And I took one of those classes about 6 months ago. And in the class, one of the exercises, you had to draw like 5 circles within a circle. And each circle represented the ones that were closest to where you had printed your name, were, you know, the people that would do anything for you at any time. And then as the circle expanded, it might be people who they would do everything for you, but not maybe every time in every situation. And then expanded out into those who you reached out to them, they may only give you some advice on who to reach out to. So very, very powerful reality. And certainly here, belonging would be your relationship with those particular types of people. So the insight domain is rooted around the world at large and your relationship to that. A great example for us at Spirit of EQ, Jeff and I are working diligently to make inroads into the law enforcement community in order to help with reform specific to emotional intelligence. Jeff and I believe firmly that many of the problems maybe would not be solved, but would be helped significantly if law enforcement were more emotionally intelligent. So that one's big, guys, right? Because even once Jeff and I get into different law enforcement agencies, it takes time for that stuff to kind of come about. And if we're working with a law enforcement agency in Washington, D.C., or Philadelphia, or Columbus, Ohio, those are pretty big, and it makes it a challenge, maybe in some senses, to get that through. So this particular one falls into that insight arena. This could also relate to, if you so choose, to your relationship with God or a higher power. Again, that would be a choice on your part, but again, it's the bigger world, it's the bigger setting, and it's probably not something that you can just pick up the phone and call, or just immediately do with a getting in your car and driving there type thing. So as we move on, we're going to next go to what we call the drivers, and those are located in that triangle again. And Jeff, I'm going to let you kind of take these on.
Okay, direction is just what it says. Is what is it that is getting you from point to point? Now, I always think it's funny when we talk about this kind of thing. You know, we have a picture of the GPS in the car, and there's one piece of information that GPS has to know before it can do anything for you. It has to know where you are. And that's where, like, the awareness is. If you know where you are, then you can direct yourself or be directed to where you want to be. So direction is, you know, what do I want to do? How do I do it? You know, that kind of thing, to figure out, you know, what is your purpose, you know, direction. So it's like that. It's like the internal GPS. And then balance. Once again, we have one of the Karens, and I love this example. It's got big rock on one side and the 4 little rocks. And we try to keep everything in balance so that one part of your life is not damaging other parts, or to be aware of it when sometimes you can't help but be out of balance. If you have a huge work project, you may need to be a little bit out of balance for a while, but you need to be aware of it. You know, I know that I'm not spending enough time to take care of myself. So as soon as this is over with, you know, I'm going to take care of myself.
One of the things, Jeff, I was going to mention too with balance. This is one where I would say you really should apply some healthy self-empathy, because this particular subject is one that we have clients who they really can tend to beat themselves up because they're on this great chase to find specifically work-life balance. And the reality is that you're human, and that entails there are going to be times you're going to be out of balance. The only time to feel bad is if you're out of balance and you just don't want to do anything about it. Then you probably need to explore much deeper. But on the whole, recognize, as Jeff had mentioned, there are going to be times when it's somewhat necessary and sometimes warranted based on outside circumstances or influences.
Yeah. Chris had a question. If you know where you are, like if you know where you are, then your direction, you'll be able to navigate your direction better if you know your starting point. I hope that answered your question. No. Okay, and finally, service. That's the giving outside of yourself, and it could be whatever is important to you. The size of the thing that you're trying to do is not important. It's important that you're doing what you can do. And it can be so many different things. Service could be, you're in line at the grocery store and you could tell that the person that is checking your groceries out is having a bad day. And you just thank them for what they're doing and be nice to them. Or the person that's the server when you're at a restaurant. That can be service. It's when you're trying to make a difference outside of yourself. Service can also be, you know, anything. It could be, you know, working with the homeless. It could be working with people in prison. It can be, you know, volunteering to help clean the beach or the roadside. Service is whatever you want it to be. Eric and I, you know, look at our business as being service. Yes, we want to make money because we need to make money to be able to do it. But to us, when we are able to help someone, change the things that they want to change, we consider that service. So it's kind of what you're doing outside of yourself. It doesn't have to be volunteer.
That's a great point, Jeff. And I would also tell you guys that the comments that I made earlier about our desire to reach into the law enforcement world, that's a great example, because we believe our tools could have a measurable impact that ripples way past our particular involvement. So service can be large and it can be small. It really matters is the fit for you.
And one of the things to think about with service, if you are familiar with 6 seconds and the emotional, their spiritual, their model of emotional intelligence is noble goal has a big part to do with your service. So if you're familiar with that, what is it that really drives you? But once again, you have to keep it in balance. If all you do is service and you're not really paying attention to those other things, you're going to run into problems. So, Eric?
Yeah. So with those, we've kind of outlined for you the first were the domains. It's almost your relationship, again, and awareness of yourself. And then into belonging, which is that area closest to you, those people familiar. And then insight, the larger world. And then Jeff just went through the what we call the drivers again, of direction, balance, and service. And next up, we're going to talk a little bit about something called tiles. Just a little illustration there for you. The tiles are, I kind of call it, it's kind of the fuel of what's inside of your profile. And it's the thing that's learnable, and it's something that you can work on to grow in. We're not going to spend a ton of time on tiles tonight, but this is a list of the 9 that are consistent in the model, and where they relate as to what areas or domains. You can see there for the first 3, for example, encouragement housed in the insight, receptivity housed in the awareness, and the resonance housed in the belonging. And as we're moving through tonight, what we're going to be doing here in a little bit is I'm going to share with you my SEQ profile that I just completed about a week ago. And Jeff is going to debrief me on that. And I was real excited about the opportunity to do this because Jeff's really good at debriefing, and I do want to learn from my results. I want to kind of understand more. I have some ideas because at the same time, I have other tools from 6 seconds that I've looked at that have given me some of that. And I will stress to you once again, whether you're in this class or once you leave here, I can't recommend highly enough the spirit of curiosity and using self-empathy. Stay away from judgment, okay? Judgment should be reserved, smaller percentage, and it's after you've exhausted the curiosity side. But again, you can look at the tiles, and these are the things that are kind of moving things along, the fuel as I liken it. And again, these are things that you can work on and you can improve upon to help your results as you look to be more balanced and more aligned as it relates to your profile. So here's the moment, at least I've been waiting for. Jeff is going to take me through my particular profile. This one, for those of you who have not taken the profile and haven't received your results, this is what a profile with us looks like. And just to kind of give you a little bit of background about the sort of the logistics, typically in a non-class environment where we're working with a client who has people that they want to have this particular profile done on, they will take it with the link as you will have or will get. And once the results come back, we typically schedule a time to give them a debrief, which Jeff is going to do. And that's designed to help me understand my results. at that point, a person or organization can decide if they want to move forward with further coaching that goes out, beyond just an immediate, or some other type of approach within the group. So just to give you a little bit of background there, but I will hand it off to you, Jeff, and
Okay.
I'm gonna be a sponge.
Okay, just a couple more kind of things about the assessment. This since it is a profile rather than a full assessment, one, you can get certified to use this without going through, be certified with other 6-second tools. It's a standalone tool. And you can, if you're working with a large group, do a kind of a debrief, a group debrief with people. We would prefer not, but sometimes that's what you have to do, because we can explain it and we can go from there. So Eric, as you look at your assessment here, you notice that we have some verbiage on the left side, but we have 2 charts there on the right. And I first want to look at the chart. Like we just talked about, we have the domains, the awareness, belonging, and insight, deeply internal, close, and then the world at large. And then we have the drivers. And if you look on the chart, Eric, you'll see those 3 bubbles that are there. And what they represent is, it can represent the size. You're pretty even, but if one of them was lower or a lot higher than one of the others, it would show it by size. But yours is pretty even. But the important thing with this is, where are they at on the circle? Now, the one thing to think about with this is, there's no right or wrong answer. And like anything else that we do when we're talking with anything with emotions, it is not static. It very much is going to represent what is going on, what was going on when you take it. If you answered the assessment questions honestly, and did it that way, it's going to give you a real good idea. So when you look at that, what do you see, Eric?
I see COVID-19.
Okay, so what does that mean?
Well, in looking at this, when I see how the awareness for balance, where I am with my balance with the green bubble,
Okay,
or green circle, is very, very close to me, which I kind of equate that to maybe what's inside my head. And then when I look at the blue circle, which is service, and I see that it's so much closer to insight, which would be the world at large.
okay,
So I'm glad that you mentioned there's no right or wrong answer. It's just, my impression is, I may be heavily in my head and heavily in things relating to the world at large. And all of and I didn't mention the race issues and the protests and rioting or whatever. But that's the thing that leaps out to me. And then when I look at direction, I think I'm pretty balanced there, and
okay.
my alignment's fine, but that's what leaps out to me.
So with what what is going on with you right now, you feel that this is representing where you're at, that you really are concerned with the world at large right now, that you want to make a difference in that. So that,
yeah, that's a big driver.
but your service right now is pointing towards that. Is that where you would like it to be?
No, because one of the things that leaped out to me when I first looked at the profile after I took it, is that I'm pretty confident I'm leaving those closest to me in the dust. So it could very well mean that I would say it seems to me, it's telling me that I am sort of more concerned about what's in my head and what's happening at the world, at a world level. And maybe I have not been paying enough attention to those who are closest to me, which is where the belonging is. So I would like that circle, or both of those circles, to move closer to the belonging side, to gain the same kind of balance that I have, and though I know I won't be perfect, but to have more balance like I am with direction.
Okay. So one more question then with this.
Mhm.
Do you think that right now your balance is where it needs to be? Is it indicating where it really needs to be right now?
That's a great question, Jeff. I would say no, because I'm not going to be good for anyone if I solve the world's problems and then my family suffers.
Okay.
I don't think it's an either or. I think it's both. I need to be closer to those that are closest to me.
Okay. All right. Now, is there anything else from that top chart that uh, is jumping out at you?
I don't think so. I am pleased by the direction piece, because I do work on that. Um, but other than that, no, I think I've covered it all.
Okay. So now we're going to go down into the tiles, which we talked a little bit about.
Sorry.
My little cheat sheet go. There we go. So the tiles are kind of the fuel. I think you said that earlier. They're the things that are actually happening in you. There's 9 of them. Now, what this assessment is showing are the 3 that are your highest. These are the ones that you are strongest in.
Hmm.
That does not mean you don't have any strengths in the other ones, but these are the strongest. And the thing we look at is, one, I'm going to shut the door so the dog doesn't bother us. Excuse me.
And one of the things I would throw out to you is the tiles. As Jeff, he alluded to, the fact that it doesn't mean you have any others. It's where in this setting, and Jeff probably will go here, but just to kind of give you a little bit of a snapshot, the idea is that you want to find the things that you're strongest in and leverage those, because it does connect to that greater picture up above in that diagram of the circle that we just talked about.
Okay. Sorry about that, folks. I thought I had the door shut, and she will definitely bark during the middle of this. So Eric, what you said about yourself is that your strongest tiles are serenity, which is insight, how calm you are with yourself, and stability. Are you? Thank you for loving my dog. Her name's Winnie. Anyway, you're very stable. People can expect, how you normally react, your normal patterns and things like that, and you're confident. You are sure of yourself. And if you look at those on the dot in the 3 tiles, the 7, 6, and 5 tiles, so that shows what they're closest to. So like confidence, is in kind of the direction area. It's going to help you be sure of your direction, so you know that you picked the best route. In GPS terms, again, it optimizes your route, so you know where you're going. Stability, it's right there next to awareness. Do you feel that you're a stable person? Are you normally the kind of person that how you're going to react?
Yes, I would say so. And I think if you were to talk to people who know me best, would say I remind them of that oak tree that has been there for like 100 years, and it's withstood storms and all kinds of inclement weather, but has remained a thriving tree.
Okay.
So yeah, the stability is one that resonates.
Okay. And then how would you describe serenity?
Serenity would be, I think the words that come to my mind, someone once told me that I have clean energy.
Okay.
There's a non-anxious presence. I feel like I have a lot of peace, even in the midst of chaos. I think, and for the benefit of our audience here, Jeff, when I look back up at that circle and where I'm at in the domains, it kind of implies I made a choice to go in that direction, versus it being something that kind of pulled me away, almost like you know, I was moved, deeply, and that's what kind of took me in that direction.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
Please.
So Eric, so when I'm looking at the top part with the green, and you're moving towards awareness, the 6 and the 5 and the 6 is reflecting that you're moving towards. That's what you said. You made a choice.
Well,
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
Those affect your balance. The 3 that are in the green, which were authenticity, serenity, and stability, they are working in your balance. Okay. So it could also, it's hard to describe exactly how it works. But
and Jeff, let me jump in for a minute.
Okay.
So Vanita, these are listed as my strengths.
Your strength, okay.
But that doesn't mean that I'm leveraging them in a way that serves me well.
Okay.
I kind of liken it to music. Somebody could have said, you're a great musician. You have great technique, but it really doesn't matter if they're not using it, right? Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong. I just as the musician, just as all of us, I don't wake up in the morning and say, I don't need to do this. However, as we all could probably relate, there's times when you kind of go, oh my gosh, I should be using, so that's kind of just to add to what Jeff said there.
Okay.
Well, and I'm going to have to, I'll share this with the group. I was laughing because I don't think Eric and I have ever co-presented anything without one of us bringing up music. So his is Miles Davis and mine is usually Rush. So
so we have our streak continues, Jeff.
I know. Sorry about that. So Eric,
all right.
So you said you would like to get that balance a little bit better. So how could you use your serenity and stability to maybe, get that a little bit more in the middle?
With serenity, the thing that comes to mind immediately would be slowing down and taking a look at myself from the perspective of, okay, how that curiosity. When I look at this, okay, what's got your brain over there? Just you. Why is your awareness your balance so heavily weighted toward awareness? Is it serving you well, Eric? Is it moving you? And are you panicked about something? Do you have anxiety about something? And those are tough questions, guys. And I know you know this. When you're asking yourself, hey, no, don't pull any punches, Eric. Are you out of balance here because you, quite frankly, are anxious about COVID-19 and the state of race relations in America? And then the other one, stability. I think that one's just more of an encourager that I am on level ground and that I can move things to a more balanced state because there's a consistency about how I've lived my life and how I'm made up as it relates to my spiritual.
Okay. Now, the insight or the service, the insight domain, you're pretty close to that in service. What you're doing outside yourself, and the 3 tiles, strengths or weaknesses that you are in that are encouragement, receptivity, or resonance. And resonance, the way we describe it, it's belonging. Are you resonating with the people around you? So of those 3, which one of those might you want to work on to maybe help get that a little bit closer to center?
Probably the resonance.
Okay. And what would that look like?
I think it would be being more on purpose to not only look at what's happening at the world at large, but also remembering those that are closest to me. Because sometimes it's easy to take for granted that those closest to me are as anchored as I am, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right. So which one of those three strengths might help you with that? Your serenity, stability, or confidence?
I think confidence, because that implies some optimism, some feeling that, you know what, just because I'm out of balance doesn't mean it's end of the world. It's something that I can affect, and I can move to a more balanced place.
Okay. How could that serenity help you? That calmness or that focus help you with this?
At least for me personally, Jeff, it would be that idea of, it would lead me to that self-empathy. I mean, it's kind of like that spirit of that all is well. You know, even though circumstances may not line up, all is well. And
would that serenity, another way I look at that word is that calm place. If you went to that calm place, would it help you refocus?
yes, because I think that in the end, it would probably be better. I would get a better flow in my head than I would be if I'm, for example, you know, being obsessively thinking about, you know, problems of the world, if you will.
Okay. So what I would recommend, Eric, and I do this with everybody, go over this again later today or first thing in the morning and let it set for a couple days, then revisit it and rethink it through. And like I also tell everybody, if you need to talk to me again, that's perfectly fine. So anything final thoughts that you have on your profile?
No, I think that's clear, clear as crystal. And I thank you all who are attending, allowing me to do this, because I gained a lot. So I appreciate it. Any questions about what we went over there? Because that's ultimately what a debrief would look like, or how it would go. Any questions, even about my profile in general, or even if you want to talk about some of the things that Jeff went over?
You can either vocally or you can, type it into the chat, either way.
Yeah.
Could we please see that slide that showed how the awareness, insight, and belonging, which tiles went with service, balance, and
okay.
Is that the one you're thinking of, Drake?
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't see that earlier. So how do you use that knowledge that like each of those areas, service, balance, and direction, each has an insight and awareness and a belonging kind of thing, like a.
As I'm thinking about, go ahead, Jeff.
No,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if I understand you right, Drake, you're asking about how belonging, for example, the three different tiles that are connected to that, resonance, authenticity, and convergence, how it relates to the meaning of that particular area. Did I get that right?
Well, I kind of thought of belonging as like relationships and your connection. And so if I was kind of like you, I was slightly move, more out of balance in relationship. So that I was just wondering if the, there's kind of like the belonging tile of direction and the belonging tile of service and the belonging tile of, what was the other? Oh, balance. So I don't know. I just maybe that would just kind of give you a clue.
Yeah, because I would look at it through Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would look at it as these are, and obviously you saw two of my strongest, I'll just go there. Two of my strongest tiles are in the balance area, right? So some might look at that and go, well, you don't really have any strengths in the service area, so how is that going to impact it? But I think what this is trying to illustrate is not so much that it has to match up as much as how do you use that particular tile strength to help impact in the overall. This is just basically saying, based on how the assessment took my particular spiritual emotional intelligence, it said, regardless of whether you like it or not, based on how you answered the question, serenity, stability, and confidence is where you're strongest. And if that helps. Jeff, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to point out, 6 seconds worked with us. We kind of came up with the idea of this profile. They worked with us. They provided all the background stuff. And we're hoping it's not going to be real soon because we have to have more people take the assessment to really get it, the database built up, is we're hoping to turn this into a full assessment where it'll be able to answer these questions a little bit deeper, because this is more of a profile than a full assessment. We're hoping
almost
to get that.
Maybe even looking at it from the perspective of a snapshot, from that perspective. So let's look at some reflection points.
Does anybody else have anything? Okay.
So
Okay.
what we try to do, did I hear so? Oh, I see you there, Chris. Go ahead.
Yes.
You'll need to unmute yourself there. There you go.
So my question relates to my profile, and I'm just curious that my tiles all connect to insight. When you go back to that other frame, where it says, so mine are encouragement, serenity, inspiration. And I thought it was interesting that they were all in that same vein. There was no other, and on my bubbles are very similar to yours, Eric, in that I'm pretty far away from belonging right now. Even though as a preschool director trying to open up a center, I'm really focused on, I guess I'm focused on the greater good and the greater goal of opening the center and helping my families, but I'm not really paying attention to my people, the people who are supporting me personally, but I'm really leaning heavily on my work people right now. And I just thought that was kind of interesting.
And certainly I can say, Chris, I'm in your tribe, which might have leaped out for you when you looked at my profile. Yeah, I hear you. And when I first looked at it, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm giving a lot of myself to the greater world, to the greater good. But I think those are great tiles to have. I mean, because I think it gives you something to work with as you review, and as I'm going to review, to kind of go, okay, how can I use, and in your case, all of those insight ones to move me to a more balanced place.
Yeah, I was looking at her assessment, and I agree.
And I'm really feeling very depleted right now, and I think that's why the topic of this webinar that we're doing right now really screamed at me because I thought, man, I need to get so many work things ready, but I'm just feeling like I just don't have it in me right now. I'm just sucked dry having to deal with this. So this is good information. Thank you.
Good. And good. Glad to hear that.
Then Lorraine asked, how can you improve your other 6 tiles not listed? The answer to that is twofold. One, if you're taking, if you're familiar with the full 6 seconds assessment, just being aware of an area that maybe isn't where you would like it to be can bring that up pretty much automatically. That's what I found. And then you can use the ones that you have strengths in to change. Like if you you're not connecting real well with the people close to you. You might want to, and you're strong in resonance, which is belonging. You might want to work or use the strengths in that area. But it's a lot of times just making that focus will help you.
And I will give you guys go ahead. I'm sorry, Jeff.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in many ways, you can look at these tiles as muscle groups. They need to be exercised to actually produce results for you. It's one of those things that, though, I mean, Chris, in your case, you have encouragement as a strength, right? That's one of your top tiles. Someone might say, well, how's encouragement going to help you be better related to those who are there for you on a personal side? Well, that's just one where I kind of go, just be an encourager, Chris. Just go be an encourager to them. And then I think what happens at that point, you start to build that muscle, and it starts helping you move that to a more balance. Just like serenity for me, it's something I've got to work. I don't need to know exactly when it's going to have the effect or who it's going to have the effect on. I just need to trust that by being more in that serenity place, just like you, Chris, being more in that encouragement space, will produce a result. Just another aside.
Hi, Eric.
Go ahead. Yes.
And Daniel here. Sorry, from Malaysia.
Yes. Right.
And I like the strengths that the assessment brings out. So I've got two questions. First question is, based on my strengths, how do I develop my strengths even further? And I think you alluded to that with Chris, where, for example, if I'm an encourager, I just keep on encouraging. But you see, I don't know that until I do the assessment.
Yes.
And I guess that comes out in the questions and the one-to-one sessions that you would have for someone. But if I was, for example, reading that assessment on my own, how does the system help me or guide me to think about what else can I do to strengthen my strengths? And in order to achieve the balance that I am looking for, how do I align my other, what do you call them, tiles, to rotate accordingly to help me find that balance? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Can I give you an example how two of them can work together? Would that help you? Okay, so let's say your confidence. You aren't where you want to be with your confidence, but you're very good with encouragement. Encourage yourself in that case. Look at yourself, insight, okay, I can do this. Use that to strengthen your confidence. Or if you're you feel very out of balance, you're not very stable, but you're strong in serenity. Use that serenity talent tile to help you with that calm place, and you learn to use that, in what's going on around you. I hope that helped.
Well, there's another thing too, Daniel, I'll throw out. With us doing this class, which is really a kind of a snapshot, gives you just a little bit of a glimpse. Typically, if someone or a group were to reach out to us about wanting to take the profile, and the process would always be, there'd be a debrief. It would give you the ability to ask questions like you are tonight. And then it could mean, not always, but it could mean that a deeper coaching relationship where you're meeting with one of us on a regular basis to dig deeper into each of these and have you go into that core work around the tiles and how they show up in your profile. So just an add on top of what Jeff said there.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Eric, we have about 4 minutes.
All right. I love the conversation. I wish we could go longer, everyone, but we got to keep moving. So reflection points. These I'm gonna, since because of time, I'm just gonna read these off, and I'd like you to, and I'm gonna read at hopefully a good pace for you. for you to think about them just inside of you. And since I'm not going to ask you to share, whether it be typing or verbally, just apply as much self-honesty and self-empathy as you can as you look at these with me. So right now, how connected do you feel in the most recent frame? Maybe you go back 2 weeks, 2 months. How connected do you feel? Then if you come to me to this place of what would your life look like if you were in better alignment? Maybe think back to my profile. Maybe that kind of looks a little bit like yours. I look at that and I ask myself, man, I can imagine that. I can imagine if I have that better balance and I'm better aligned. And then this one in the form of a statement is think about one domain that you'd like to be better connected to. This is in the spirit that we always apply when we do a session, or even if it's one-on-one, is we want you to take what you've learned and go do something with it. This will not serve you if you just do it as a one-off and you slip your profile in a file and say, hey, that was fun. It serves you best when you can actually act on it and do something. So with that, I want to show you one last thing. This is an iceberg. And as many of you, most of you know, that an iceberg, the greatest portion of an iceberg is what's below the surface. That's why we have all this inside work and why it can be so rewarding. If you think about what we've talked about, awareness, the domain, the connection to self is above the surface. Belonging domain is connection with familiar others, that's above the surface. Insight, that connection with the larger world, is above the surface. This is the stuff that gets seen, right? But the drivers are located beneath the surface. So direction, balance, and service. And then of course, the tiles. So I always like to show this particular illustration to kind of give you a sense about why it's important to be focusing in on where you're strong at, what tiles give you best service, so that you can manifest above the surface. Jeff and I would love to thank you. I don't say like, because I think love is a better word.
Yes, and Eric, if you have not taken the assessment yet and you want to take it, it's all part of what this is tonight. Either put your email into the chat or just send me an email, which is probably the better way to, let's just do that. Just send me an email at jeff@spiritofeq.com, and then I will send you a link to take it.
And certainly if any of you have questions, either my email or Jeff's will suffice. We'd be more than happy to answer those for you. We do so appreciate your time and joining us on Grow You Online. And we certainly hope we'll have a chance to connect with you again. Oh, and by the way, I can't help put a shameless plug, 6 seconds, please forgive me, but we have a podcast. It's called The Spirit of EQ. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. It's a great way to gain more understanding about the work we do.
And also, one more thing. If you go to our YouTube Spirit of EQ channel, does anybody know Hanley Bright? Hanley was interested and he took it and he allowed me to record and post his debrief on our YouTube channel. Spirit of EQ YouTube channel. So Hanley's an interesting guy. I had fun with that.
Awesome. Well, once again, everyone, thank you for your time. Have a great evening. Take care.
Bye-bye.